Good morning, guys. This is the Spring 2026 expectations video focused on where should these teams land. Now, I've done ones where I kind of have an estimate. This one, we'll try to put their actual positions down. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be 100% correct because many variables can affect this. How teams have improved, what have they actually been able to discover about themselves to fix. But the first team to kind of really set it off is Lion. Why? It's because Lion is able to achieve a certain level of consistency because of their jungle. Inspired, again, best in the West. I know people will say Skew has done very well in that, like, oh, is Skew better than Inspired? The reality is, Inspired has been on many teams where he has to carry the bulk of the burden of controlling the flow and the pacing of the game, and then also assisting his teammates on figuring out what they need to do. And having this huge, I guess, essentially plate that he has to cover, the surface area of the plate. Yeah, it's just something that no one else can really do but him. And it does give Lion a consistency level that other teams just cannot have, because if Inspired is on it, which in most of the times, yes, he has made mistakes, but like he has a very strong capability to just maintain it. Helps them stay in the top half easily. And so going into this again was, C9 showing some chinks in their armor from both the finals and the Battle of Americas. And then knowing that Sentinels and Team Liquid both have some glaring issues, it's kind of looking like they're going to be the first seed again. And that should be the expectation you have for them, is the first seed. I think Isles has improved his laning phase, and that in return has improved my expectation for Lion's bot lane entirely. Granted, I still think Isles is not necessarily the best team fighter. I think he kind of, once we get out of that, can kind of make a bunch of blunders that's not really ideal. But having a laning phase down is critical. And then Dokla is doing his thing, and then Saint has emerged. He had very high expectations for himself from last split, having, someone who can actually help guide him and then like make his game absolute. And the beginning of the last split was pretty terrible. And then for whatever reason, something clicked, and now he is where he needs to be at. And so he is expected to beat the number one mid laner. And so you have the number one mid laner and the number one jungler, which is just, if anyone knows from history, having the best jungle mid makes the games infinitely easier. You can dictate whichever side you want to play to, and it really helps snowball the map. So all in all, yeah, they should be expected to be number one. Number two, this one is still C9. Well, last split, I had C9 as number one going into the split. This one, they're number two. I think, and that is in part to the fact that I just don't see the other teams. If C9 has a collapse, obviously this will look terrible. But, the other teams have enough issues compared to C9 where I feel like some of theirs has to do with, confidence. And that if they lose confidence in themselves or what they can do, for whatever reason, they just forget, how to play the game. And they look awful when that happens. And, for the finals, a lot of the issues they had was that they didn't think Inspired was going to do cheese ganks or do these cheesy invades. Now, keep in mind, this is something that's always been present in the game after they made the changes going to this new season. It's something everyone should have considered, because the reality is you don't have a lot of time to ward. You don't have a lot of time for people to stand by and scout to see where your opponents are. And due to that, if you fail to ward, yes, you're very prone to getting cheesed. And Inspired has done these kinds of things even when that was the case, like in prior splits in years. It just so happens that he never really did it up to that point. They forgot about it, and then Blabber lost his mind on what the hell he should be doing in these scenarios. So, assuming that after they lost confidence and then they went into Battle of Americas with even less confidence, struggled to get it back and figure out what the hell they're doing and got imploded. I hope that they fix those problems, you know, and like they'll have probably a decent start, hopefully, going into the split and launch themselves into the higher tier. Now, keep in mind, they have good players still. I mean, Blabber, I have slotted as number 2. They have Thanatos slotted as number 1 top laner. Their ball lane has been pretty consistent, you know, for LCS standards across the board. And APA has been able to fill his role. You know, obviously, he also have some issues against a couple of certain players, but generally, like, the team is still quite strong. So, like, I just don't really see how they're not going to be number 2, at the very least, going into this split still. Especially, again, because no one has made any changes with their rosters. It's just gameplay and strategy decisions that they have to do. Hopefully on C9's side, what I would really like to see them like branch on more is their jungle support play, because I felt like they were pretty much the best team when it came to using jungle support. And enchanters are starting to get slightly nerfed. And it's not like they're removed or anything. But they are starting to tap into that a little bit. And like a champion like Rel got buffed. And the Rel buff is actually pretty good. And so we start seeing a few more of those kinds of picks. Maybe going into the Nico, maybe going into the Bard more. And getting Vulcan involved outside of just lane. And you're making these kinds of plays. Yes, they could do quite well. Third seed. This one is actually a lot harder because I don't think it's Dig. I don't think it's Fly. It's way too big of a gamble to guess it's Shopify. And so then that leaves Sentinels, TL, and DSG. So DSG had a pretty phenomenal split. And I would say that Call Me actually showed up a lot more than I expected. Because typically he's the kind of player who, you know, he does well in tier 2. But like he's kind of like the upper echelon of tier 2. Like you don't really think he's going to do too much in tier 1. But like he was actually not bad. On Sentinel's side, you know, they have their own issues with like firepower, and they really strived on their team fighting and team play to kind of carry them through. And then there's Team Liquid, who's kind of like the enigma in that they're the team that you expect to be up here because they have the players who are capable of being up here. It's just, were they able to wrangle, you know, the issues they have into this? Like Quid and Morgan both were having underperforming games. Jose was fine, but I think there is a fundamental issue to me with this team when it comes to their macro play, and that's where like I'm really struggling to decide on that. But God, this probably is the hardest one, to be honest, the third seed, because it's gonna line up with how everyone else looks afterwards. I think in this moment, and this probably is gonna be a little bit of a gamble to say again, but I probably will put TL. I think, again, like I said, a lot of issues they have is people are not playing together. Like their macro has problems, and hopefully, like I said, this is something they fix. This is something they get people more like on top of things. They also have issues with their fights, especially just fighting together and knowing who to target. Like their laning phase should be good. I mean, they have Quid, they have Morgan, and they have Eon Core JJ. Like their laning phases should be good and good enough to carry them over a bunch of different teams. It's if they fix this one aspect, then they're going to look better. So this is kind of like more of a gamble on my end, and that hoping that knowing the coaches they have and such, they're going to figure out a way to fix this all. For the fourth seed, and keep in mind for Dig, there are like, I will say for Dig, there's definitely things about them that they've changed that not changed, basically their ball lane's in there, right? But there's other parts of it that just kind of ruins it for me. And I still don't think FlyQuest is going to make up enough grounds, especially with the glaring problems they had, to necessarily beat out some of these other teams. Though I will say DSG's ball lane is going to... Oh, dude, that is true. Oh man, that's actually true. I forgot that their bot lane did surprisingly well. So to a certain point where they actually started getting exposed, and then it got like pretty bad. Honestly, this probably is Sentinels for me. Sen. So again, I think their team play is like really what propelled them and helped them like perform, despite having some pretty, big problems when it comes to the fact that Impact is not playing well. I mean, like, he actually is losing lane to everyone, which is a problem. But fortunately for him, a lot of people still don't know how to kind of push the game forward enough with their leads against Impact, which means that, yeah, he's not really getting nearly as punished. I think their bot lane is fine. I don't think they have like an insane bot lane, but like they're definitely good enough. And again, they're one of the teams that has this same aspect here, jungle support, where I felt like Hui and Hambach knew how to play well together. Or not say well together, but they played good together. I guess that kind of sounds like the same thing, but they knew how to tackle the map. Hambach is the kind of guy who wants to pressure and make things happen. Hui is definitely aligned with that as well. And so having a good jungle support, it makes a huge difference. Again, I've talked about this numerous times in other videos, in that when it comes to jungle support, the higher level you get, the more important it becomes. Like if you're playing in tier 3, it's just like random challenger, grandmaster, like master players, whatever the case is, you're not very well coordinated or anything. Typically, like, those games just play out by whoever is just better generally, But as you get further, the decisions by the guys who can actually move around the map, get vision, help enhance their laners, that becomes critical. And so this is why C9 was placed so high for me. And this is why, I guess, in the end, Sentinels is placed so high, despite me having major issues with their top lane, having partial issues that they kind of lack firepower still. I don't really view them as like a team that has a guy who's just like a Yeon, a Saint, like they don't have someone on the team who's just, whoa. Like maybe it's Hambach, maybe. But generally you would want that to be in a core carry position, which that's not the case. So who becomes at 5th? Well, it's between FlyQuest and DSG, for sure. And so with FlyQuest, I've talked about like some of the problems they've had, in that Griffin is used to playing a very specific forced style. And like I knew this going into watching him from CBLOL or LTA South, and transferred into LCS. And the only reason why his playstyle worked in the initial matches is because his opponents were just terrible. And that's not trying to be like, I'm not trying to say he's bad, Griffin, necessarily. It's just that the teams he played against were playing like at a tier 2 level, in that like Griffin was being able to just full clear and then just get a pick. Like people were just running into him and he was just killing them. And yeah, I would say the Volibear pick was great because it was just such a stat stick, and that like you could kind of just brute force your way out of certain situations, which is exactly how Griffin plays. He'll look for fights, he'll look for situations, and he'll take them no matter what. So he has to figure out how to dial that back, because if he doesn't, he's going to end up looking pretty bad, to be honest. I've already talked about CryoGen, and that he has issues with like patience on timings on when to go in, can get baited. If it kind of slows down and the game is slow, he's a lot more useless. In top lane Gakos, he has to find his ability to impact the game, not just laning phase, but the actual game. And then Quad is like their guy. Like he is the absolute position guy who needs to perform and be the rock in which they can depend on every single time. And because they have these issues layered in, if teams dial into that and that's still a problem for them, it is going to be hard for them to win. Meanwhile, if you look at DSG, Castle has improved his impact on the game. Like, it's taken him like 3 years, whatever the case is, but he is actually getting there where his laning phase is fine, and then he can actually do things on the map in the game, and that is making a big difference. You have Kryra, who got some experience. You know, he showed that he is quite a capable jungler, and then makes a lot of good decisions generally. Yes, there are some bad decisions that happen, of course, but I think he's performing to where you actually want him to be. And he does have a mentality, a capability that is like inspired, not in terms of being able to control the map, but more so that he is a very consistent individual despite if tilting things are happening in the game. He is able to avoid like indulging in it, like making it worse. And so that is a really great aspect to have. So your top lane is playing better. Your jungler is consistent. Your mid laner, I already talked about Call Me, is playing at a higher level than expected. And that leaves your bot lane, who is kind of struggling. And so this is why this one is a little hard for me to judge, in that if DSG's bot lane gets exposed, the games are going to be kind of unplayable. Like, that is the major thing I'm super worried on with them. And that, like, you know, if you looked at Sentinels with like where Impact can kind of get exposed, Impact still makes better decisions around the entire game compared to DSG's bot lane and their contributions to the entire game. I mean, it's putting a lot of hope that FlyQuest fixes some of these problems. And if we do move a little bit away from the enchanters, it will help DSG's bot lane for sure. I mean, I'm gonna go for it because I kind of also did my ranks a little bit this way. I am gonna put DSG here, and I am gonna put FlyQuest here. I really should have done this on a blank slate so it wasn't so messy, right? But I think, again, that they do have certain major issues across. Wow, that does not look like a cross. I'm so sorry. But that's like a big thing to me. And so, like, it is going to be another asterisk for me. Like, again, that's like, I feel like these two can be interchangeable a bit, but I do feel like they have higher consistency compared to FlyQuest in their current form. Yes, for sure, their bot lane is like a problem. And I hope that doesn't like expand from there, because if it does, it's going to be pretty awful. But assuming that they can wrangle that in a little bit, I think DSG has more going for them in terms of just what they want to do. And compared to FlyQuest, who a lot of it is just going to continue just being, did they improve enough? That's really all it is. That's all it is for FlyQuest. It's not like saying like FlyQuest is necessarily like a terrible team. It's just that for sure when you get into these upper teams, no way they do anything. There's just no way. They just don't have the macro level. They don't have smart decision making to like handle it. And like one of the things was that like where I was really hoping that Masu would step up and kind of help control the game. That didn't really happen, to be honest. I don't think that really settled through, which kind of sucks. And again, I don't think Quad is doing much either in that regard, which were both expected, but not great. So now here comes to the final ones. And this is like, it's between Dig and Shopify. And honestly, well, again, they're two teams that have some certain issues uprising, right? And that one, Dig, is a team that I think their bot lane will be fine. I mean, it's literally FBI Ignar. I think Ignar isn't the best enchanter player. I think he'll find a way to get around it. But their mid jungle is terrible. I mean, it's XU Palafox. They're not good. But they did beat out Shopify's mid jungle. Shopify just generally underperformed across the board. And so they're like a huge question mark, right? Like, is Shopify really going to actually like figure things out and fix things? And especially it seems like they're kind of confidence based, because if things are not going well, I didn't look like they can really turn it around ever, so that's pretty scary. Compared to Dig, I feel like Photon was not as good as he could be. I'll say that. For sure, he was not like the Goliath that we've seen him be in prior seasons past, but I do feel like their bot lane will be solid enough that they actually might be able to utilize that. And I think Ignar is one of those kinds of players who does propel the game no matter what. Yeah, he can int and whatever the case is. He is kind of like that support in the past, where like some of these guys would typically int quite a bit, but they always got things done. He is kind of like that. But I do feel like Ignar is good enough to help guide the game despite XU not being the best player, despite Palafox not being the best player, and he did not really change, to be honest. Like I watched his games, like I felt like he missed a bunch of things still. But Shopify is like really hoping that Zinni like shows up, and if Zinni does show up, that probably helps a ton. But that's all what ifs. And Zinni had an atrocious year in that. For now, it is Dig. It is Shopify at last. And again, putting it like this, it's funny too, because I think for Dig, I rated them a bit low on players. But like I said, it's so hard to want to just say that it's Shopify based on the split that they had. Again, it's all just conjecture, right? You're just assuming they're going to be better. Just like how I'm assuming TL will be better. Just like I'm assuming DSG will be better. Like that's all you can really do, right? Unless I was like in scrims and watching these guys play and I had knowledge, then I can make that decision. But I watched games by Zinni and LCS to get an idea of like, was he actually better than expected? And I didn't even think he was the best player on his team. And yet he was being heralded as this like insanely good player. So my confidence in thinking that Zinni is like the guy dropped. And I think that's also part of why I have it like this. Like I really didn't think Zinni was like all that. And that does, like I said, that does affect it. So for now, can't be trusted. This is what it is. Can't be trusted. Can't be trusted. And I think this is the Ignar effect. Again, you can't really read this a little bit because like my handwriting is not the best, right? With a mouse, but just generally, it's not really the best. But this is how my expectations are lining up. Lion at first, C9 at second, TL at third, possibly interchangeable, but I feel like they have good enough player, like Core JJ, and the staff are smart enough to help propel this game. Sentinels, again, they're probably going to be the most consistent team on what you can expect from them. And like I said, there are some issues that they have, but I feel like they're doing a pretty good job and also just conversing with each other and improving the game together. That is a major important factor in terms of just figuring out how to, advance to the higher levels in LCS. So I really have good confidence in that part of them. DSG, it's like, can you repeat what you did? FlyQuest, can you honestly just figure out like how to get people to just get involved in the game more and work together better? I mean, really, that's all it is. And then reduce the mistakes that you have. And they have a laundry list of stuff to get done, but if they do get some of it done, it can turn out pretty good. Dig, Ignar effect. Yes, like I said, Ignar effect is basically just he knows how to push the pacing and flow of the game, which is a great aspect to have, especially as a support. And so now they have a guy who's actually going to get stuff done for the team compared to before when they had, not a great bot lane, right? And then we have SR who just shit the bed, and due to that, just assuming they're going to magically be better is not something you could just say. You just can't say that. Like, we don't know if that's the case. And I'm based on what I've seen from Zinni, I don't feel like he's the guy who's just going to demolish things like the way Saint is. So that might fall through, and your bot lane's just like okay, not amazing, and your top laner didn't really look as good as he should look as well. So it was kind of like, and also knowing that your mechanical play was worse somehow, like didn't look even better coming back from a Korean boot camp. How does that happen? Like even on just like a fundamental level of like what you should, like how you should, like the flow of the game should be as an individual looked wrong, even though you came back from boot camping in Korea, which doesn't make any sense. So that's my expectations video. LCS starts today. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see how my rankings come through as we push to the end of the split. I know some of them are going to be wrong, probably, but for how last split went, like I said, I did say FlyQuest would be bottom 4, and they were. You know, despite them starting off like with a 2-0 series, like winning their first 2 series, and then going to 3 games against C9, which was fake, by the way. C9 should have won the second game. They just started trolling and gave FlyQuest the game. It showed that they have big problems, and that's what I expected. And there was no problem with them finishing the way they did, because that's where they should be. If they did better than that, then it would be pretty bad on LCS as a whole. DSG and Sentinels definitely were a little bit more of a surprise, especially DSG, I think, for me, because I felt like DSG had, well, it's just Call Me just played better than I thought, and their bot lane wasn't as big of an issue. And Sentinels, I did say there was a percentage that they could finish top 4, which, I mean, they finished even greater than that, but yeah, I think for sure they solidified themselves as being a better team. So that's it, guys. All right. Enjoy LCS.